my name is Douglas Crow, and I'm a supporter of Nonviolence International. The reason nonviolence is important to me is that it gave me the opportunity to explore ideas and practices that I had never paid much attention to before, particularly in relation to the religion of Islam.
Perfect, thank you. And the next question is, how did you become involved with Nonviolence International?
My involvement with Nonviolence International came about through my father, Ralph Crow, who worked with Mubarak Awad for several years after his retirement from the American University of Beirut. He came and lived in Washington. And I got drawn into the activities of nonviolence through Mubarak Awad and Michael Beer. And then I had the opportunity to direct a program for which funding was given through the Democratic Institute here in Washington. And we ran it for about 4 or 5 years, in the late 90s, I believe. We had the opportunity to conduct an Islam and Peace project for about 5 years. We went on a number of extended trips and visits to Middle Eastern countries, Asian countries, and Southeast Asian countries, where we met with a wide variety of officials, educators, civic actors, and community leaders, and we explored with them the resources that the Islamic faith and the Islamic experience has for promoting peaceful resolution of conflicts and also nonviolent methods of bringing justice and peace. It was a very educational experience for me. I met with many, many people that I would never have had the opportunity to meet, including some very highly placed people. And I also learned a great deal because in the beginning I really didn't have much of an idea what the resources for peace were in the Muslim tradition. So I did a lot of academic study and a lot of practical work with people in concrete ways. And we ended up having several very interesting meetings. Some of them were seminars and workshops which we conducted in the States, and several were very intensive sessions which we did in different countries like Palestine, Syria, Iran, Malaysia, Indonesia, with nonviolent training. Michael Beer and I did several sessions of nonviolent training in Aceh in the late 90s. And we were able to achieve some measure of success in provoking and making Muslims think about using nonviolence as a method to advance their interests and their concerns, especially when it came to issues of justice and oppression. There was one occasion when Mubarak Awad and I visited Palestine, and he had set up a number of meetings there with Palestinian leaders on the West Bank. But we had been before then in Istanbul, and we had been shopping in the souk in Istanbul, very nice place. Mubarak had bought some beautiful faience ware, which is distinctively Turkish artwork, and they were very delicate and they're very expensive. I remember he bought about 6 pieces, some of them quite large. He was going to take them as gifts to friends and colleagues in Palestine. When we reached the airport in Tel Aviv, they were carefully bubble wrapped and carried separately by hand by him. Then when we cleared customs, we were stopped by some military people, and apparently they knew who Mubarak was, and they asked to examine these items. He explained what they were. They unpacked them and threw them on the ground and stamped on them with their boots and broke them all in front of him. I was, of course, outraged and wanted to protest and intervene. But he grabbed me and forcibly contained my action and said, it's okay, let it alone. And he did not react in anger at all. And this was a great lesson for me about nonviolence.
That's awesome. Yeah, our first day, Mubarak told us, I just don't get angry. I just let that part of me go. So that was really interesting to hear that, his line of thinking there.
Especially because they did it in such a contemptuous
way.
I
know.
Intending to insult him,
yes.
to make him provoke.
Mm-hmm.
If he had provoked, they could have arrested him.
Yep.
If he had protested or did something physical. which was why he grabbed me so much. He didn't want me to get
to get arrested
Yeah,
either.
because I was very upset at him.
I mean, I would be
Yeah,
too, yeah.
yeah.
I mean, that's just horrible.
They were very expensive pieces
Mhm.
anyway.
Did you guys go back and get more, or?
No, we were there in Palestine, or in Israel and Palestine, and he wanted to give these to his brothers
Mhm.
and to his cousins, and the gifts, nice gifts.
Yes.
To put them in their house. You know.
Oh.
They had Islamic designs too,
Mhm.
Arabic style.
Mhm.
Yeah. Anyway,
Okay.
the challenges to nonviolence really resolve down to understanding better how human beings operate and the motives they have for their own activities and their own perceptions. The way to bring about a peaceful relationship is to start internally. I think that the true practitioners of nonviolence understand this, and so it's a method of working on oneself so that one can be a model for others. You teach more by showing people the right way to do it rather than preaching about it, right? On the other hand, you need to work through the complexities of every particular situation. You need to know the history of a problem, the conditions of a people, the methods of oppression and injustice that are being used. You can't ignore those things. But without the internal resources, the conviction and the willingness to suffer, to be exposed to injustice without reacting in a violent manner, it's a great provocation, and it develops very strong internal forces in a person. That needs special training or innate endowment. Not everyone has it. They're not born with that. You can acquire it, but some people have it in more abundance than others through their natural gifts. That's what I take on it.
And what keeps, last question, what keeps you hopeful in these difficult times? You can take a few minutes to think about that one too. It's a loaded question.
I feel that one should always be optimistic, but also realistic. To be naively hopeful is foolish. On the other hand, there's always a method or a angle or a means of approach or a direction that one can work on or pursue systematically that is promising for results. When you run up against a wall, there could be a door opening behind you. And I think one of the things that I learned from Mubarak personally was this questing and optimistic and hopeful attitude that if we can't go forward here, we'll look for another direction to go forward in, but never give up the will to go forward, which is something that is important because it's easy to get a feeling of hopelessness or despair. One should never give in to that. Yeah, this is Douglas Crow, also known as Karim Crow, speaking about Nonviolence International. I wish all of you very well. Thanks.